Hello, I'm Antoine Bai from FAIRTIQ, and I would like to talk to you today about how innovation in fare collection and fare policy and pricing can help transit agencies reclaim customers that they lost during COVID. If you've been to Switzerland, you may have experienced the public transit system and trains, which are ubiquitous, integrated, but unfortunately, somewhat hard to navigate when it comes to pricing or getting a ticket. And that was really the reason why the founders of FAIRTIQ created the company with a vision to make transit really, really easy to use. Fast forward 5 years later, and we have national coverage in Switzerland. 20% of tickets and day passes sold in the country. We're expanding rapidly in Germany, Austria, France, and a number of other countries. And we've processed 40 million trips. So as I said, the foundation and really the impetus for the foundation of FAIRTIQ was ease of use. So if you used an application before to pay for your trip, they all have this in common. They ask you to make a choice in advance. So would you like to buy a ticket, 3 tickets, a day pass, a weekly pass, a monthly pass? And it can be a bit overwhelming to look at the options, try to calculate what is best for you if you don't know how much you will ride. So what FAIRTIQ does is take away all these confusing choices, but give you a green button that you slide to check in. It creates a travel authorization that you can show for inspection. And when you're done with your trip, you check out. Customers told us they didn't really enjoy checking out or having to remember to check out. So we created Smart Stop, which uses artificial intelligence to detect when a trip is over and check them out. At the end of the trip, the user gets a screen with origin, destination, and an estimate of their trip. The other strength, building on ease of use, is the flexibility and the data that FAIRTIQ provides. So if we look under the hood, in blue, you have the data that is collected by the phone and that is used to map this trip to a virtual representation of the transit network and use this information to calculate the fare. So you have an example here with 3 different transit modes, but it could be any mode of transit that you have in your community. The pricing engine is what provides that pricing flexibility that can make it more enticing to take transit. So of course, we can do the basics that you see on the red bar. We can add time of day like off-peak or weekend days, holidays, etc. And what is quite unique is that we can provide pricing by location. So a special price by origin, destination, or a combination thereof. And then on top of that, we add a promotional layer with caps, which means you don't pay after a certain amount, incentives like credits, and everything that I described can be made available to every transit user or only a subset, for example, a group of employees that receive a special code. An example of a twist on a cap. So unlike a traditional cap that I mentioned, where after a certain threshold, let's say $100, you don't pay anymore. In this case, transit users keep paying, but everything that they pay over that limit is credited to them the following month. So it encourages them to keep coming back to transit. Another example is 2 innovations that we did with the National Railway in France in 2 different regions. In the first case, it's a program to encourage young people to ride the train. So in this case, if they ride up to 5 returns, they get 50% off. Then they get free rides for the rest of the month. And then they even build credit for the following month. And so it really encourages them to keep coming back to transit to keep the free trips. And the result has been an increase in 35% the number of people in that age group taking the train. In the neighboring region, they had a fairly complex offering with single tickets, weekly passes, 20-trip bundle, 30-trip bundles, and monthly passes that made it difficult for customers to decide what they wanted to buy. So instead, they can just ride, and the system adjusts the pricing to what they actually used, and that's doing quite well. So it's really reflecting a change in how people go to work, that they don't go to work every day, and that they don't need to buy passes at the beginning of the month. What we've done in Switzerland and really shown that there was a positive business case is the FAIRTIQ bonus. So in this case, it's more targeted at infrequent users. And in this case, they receive 5% off if they ride 5 different days of the month. So at day 4, we send them a reminder and tell them that in order to claim their 5%, they will have to ride an extra day. And the credit is only available on the first of the following month. So again, it encourages them to come back to transit. I talked about employer programs, and that can apply really to any business. And we provide this toolbox of options where they can mix and match the dimensions of a trip to create their own fare policy that's available either to anyone who travels to a certain destination or from a specific origin at a time of the day, or to users who get a special code. So an example here is a company that had 3 different sites, and they coded the stops for the 3 different sites and offered free transit between these sites, as well as 50 euro credit per month. And they only pay for the trips that are made, unlike regular employer programs that require the employer to buy a certain amount of passes per month without really knowing who uses them and how they're used and whether at the end of the day it's worth it. A variant of that is the city of Halle in Germany that coded the 2 stops around their Christmas market and offered free transit to anyone who traveled to these stops. So no need to register or code, just use the app right to the market, and the city picks up the tab and only pays for the trips that are actually made. So I mentioned origins and destinations a lot. So usually ticketing programs provide the data for the origin of the trip, not the destination. But it's really important for planning purposes for agencies to really understand where people are coming from and going to. And so this information that we provide can help them not just assess the impact of pricing changes, but also service changes. And that's something, as I said, that they don't have right now. The reason why we've been able to grow so fast is that FAIRTIQ is very quick to implement. We have no hardware, no beacons or validators, and we don't need integrations with existing systems. We don't have a wallet that stores money. And so if an agency already has a wallet with stored money, we can add FAIRTIQ on top of that, where the user just inputs their mode of payment. But it lives very well with other systems. So in the example of the French region I mentioned before, we implemented their project in 6 weeks without even going there. And that's because we've done it many times before. And again, we have no integrations or hardware needs. And this has really served us well in our expansion in our home market and neighboring countries. We've processed, as I said, 40 million trips in the last 5 years, but now we're doing 3 million a month. And so you can see that the growth rate is really quite spectacular. So we'd love to have a conversation if you're a transit agency or a municipality, county that's interested in driving transit use, or if you're a business that's interested in supporting transit for your employees or your visitors. We'd love to have a conversation with you and implement FAIRTIQ in the US. Thank you so much.